does the lawsuit involving iReady tell us about computerized instruction? So there's a new lawsuit out. It was originally filed in December of 2025 against iReady. And for those of you who may not know, iReady is it's both an assessment and it's an instructional piece that's used in schools all over the United States and in Canada as well. And iReady is a bit unique because it has both pieces. So the student takes the assessment, which is usually very short. It's usually 30 to 45 minutes. They take that up to 3 times a year. That's what serves as the universal screener, which is how schools determine kind of how a student is doing, if that student might need intervention of some sort. But then the second part is the instruction. So students have individualized instruction with iReady, and that's all computerized. So in the reading portion, a student might read a passage and answer questions. It's a pretty typical test item. And in schools all over the place, iReady is just really a popular tool. I know here in South Carolina, almost all the schools use it for grades K through 8, and sometimes they even use it in high school. And so iReady is it's just a very popular product. And teachers, one of the school systems I taught at, they just thought that it was the best thing ever. We were really encouraged to use iReady for students, and there were prizes about if students did so many lessons. It was just very incentivized. If students did better on the test the next time they took it, they got a lot of prizes. And students would be on iReady in their homerooms for about 15 to 30 minutes at a time. And that's a pretty typical setup. That's what is recommended by iReady. And it was just viewed as a really important tool, especially by the district. This lawsuit claims that iReady is taking student data and using it and selling it to third parties and giving it over to third parties. So the lawsuit claims that this is a violation of FERPA, which is student rights, protection rights. Students do have the right of privacy in school. They have rights. Their records cannot just be turned over to any person. Their records can only be turned over with parent permission or to parents themselves. Even in a situation such as a custody case or something involving law enforcement, there are very strict guidelines about who can get student information. It's very well protected. There's a lot of privacy guidelines in schools. Yet we have this computerized program that is admitting to giving and selling information to third parties about students. There is evidence that they have admitted this publicly. Now, iReady is saying that it doesn't violate FERPA, and they're getting into all this legal jargon, but there's a lot of evidence against them in this case. I read all the documents, and then I read the plaintiffs, the people who are filing against the iReady. I read their response. So there is some evidence about this. It's likely that some data was turned over, and iReady's admitting that. So that just made me think, is this program worth it? Is the fact that now our students' data is being used potentially in ways to economically benefit this company, Curriculum Associates is the company that owns iReady, particularly to benefit them in ways that we don't know about? Is it worth invading our students' privacy? Is it that good of a program that it's worth it? And the answer I came up with was absolutely not. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about that. So iReady, first of all, it's relatively expensive. And when I say relatively expensive, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up. So iReady is about $35 per year per student for each subject. So most schools do both reading and math, so it's a total of $70. Now that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but then you think about it, I worked at a school with 1,400 students. That's a lot of money. If you multiply 70 times, it's around $100,000. That's a lot of money. And you think of these big school systems that have maybe 70, 80, 90 schools, it comes out to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. That could be used for professional development. It could be used to hire more teachers or more staff. There's just a lot of things that it could be used on besides this. And by the way, that's fairly expensive compared to other universal assessments. But of course, they don't have that instruction piece. It's the instruction piece that it's worth potential invading that's worth invasion of student privacy. So there is evidence that the assessment is valid. In other words, it's a good assessment. When it comes to the instruction piece, iReady brags about how it's effective. However, its effect size is relatively low. So let me explain that. So when we look at effect sizes and how well an intervention works, something in education or in science or anywhere that you're studying how well something works, it goes from 0 to 1, and it can even go a little bit over 1. The closer it is to 1, the more effective it is. So if you have an intervention that's around 1 or anywhere close to 1, that's amazing. That means that it's super, super effective. And if it's greater than 1, that means that it did even better than expected at 1. Even 0.5 is a pretty good score. That means that it was pretty effective. It had a big gap, a big difference. Already, instruction has 0.15 to 0.25 effect size. And already says, oh, that's fantastic. That really means students are learning a lot. But that's a very low effect. I worked on a program that worked at a summer reading that gave books to kids for the summer reading. Its effect size was pretty close to that, but students only read for about 2 months of the year. So for that to have an effect size, it'd only be 2 months of the year when students are in school for 10 months of the year, doing iReady, doing this huge amount of work every day and having it be such a big deal and being rewarded and so forth. That's a very low effect size. Guide reading programs are what really make a difference in student reading. So what are those? So those are programs where students are reading what they wrote for long period for pleasure. They're reading for at least 15 minutes a day. Sometimes they do more. Of course, if you read more, it's better. And the effect sizes for guide reading are huge. The studies show that they're at least 0.4, but sometimes for particular groups and in particular studies, they have been as high as over 1. And it shows that that guide reading is very effective for vocabulary, for reading comprehension, even for writing. And so, and there's been multiple studies that have found this. And that was the whole idea behind the summer reading program I mentioned earlier. So we can have a bigger effect, a much bigger effect, without the invasion of student privacy for a much lower cost. The only costs are the books, which if you fund a school library, students can check out books and they can bring them back. We can fund that, or we can fund this computerized program that shows really low efficacy and that is actually hurting student privacy. So to me, it's clear that this is not a good bargain, that books are the way to go. And we also have all this evidence that, particularly for younger students, much time spent on the computer is harmful. Students really need limited screen time, and this program totally gets that idea. It's very much interactive on screen. And iReady's not the only program that is really excited about the use of technology to individualize programs. The First Lady of the United States is on board with this program called Play-Doh, which is just similar. It's an individualized, computerized program. There's this woman who has schools all over the country, and they only work for 2 hours a day, but those 2 hours are spent on the computer, and they think that that's just wonderful. But again, the evidence does not support that. The evidence supports that guide reading is better, it's healthier for children, and there aren't these privacy issues about data being shared. If a child reads a book, there's no way that the data is going to be shared from that. There's no data to be shared. So if you're interested, if you heard this and you think, oh, well, if guide reading is that important and that powerful, maybe my child needs to read more. I have a program to help you. It's called Reading Reboot, and it's a program for family members of children to help them to get started with reading what they wrote. What we might call guide reading, or what we might call reading for pleasure. And just 15 minutes a night, 5 times a week can make a huge, huge difference. And this program is designed for busy families. The activities I have, the printables I have, and the videos I have are very short, and they are for parents to basically guide your child to finding books that they like and to creating a reading habit in children. Unfortunately, we are at a point in our society where we don't have a very big reading culture, especially in schools. A lot of schools don't really read a lot anymore, and that's part of the problem we're having with reading. That's been noted by multiple scholars, that part of this reading crisis is that students just start reading and then they get to college and can't read very well. And so this program is to help you to turn that around, to find affordable, low cost or no cost books with their communities. It teaches how to find books your students like. It teaches you how to interpret any test data you have, to find your child's reading level, to find books that they can read. And it's only $29.95 right now, which is a very low price. And so I hope you take advantage of that and look into this program. I'm going to put the link in the comments, and I would love to hear from you. I want to hear about your experience with Ride Reading, or your experience with computerized programs in general. Have you found them useful? Have you found them not useful? Do you think that they're good for small children? What programs does your school use, does your district use? If you homeschool, what programs have you found useful? We are heading into we are in a technological age, and we're going to see more and more of this thing. So it's something that we need to be able to use wisely. So again, I'm going to put the link in the comments to my programs. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, keep reading.